Okay, let's try this again. Once again. Okay, did anybody rejoin? Let's see. Not yet. People might be stuck on the other one still. All right. So I'm live, and as you guys can see, I'm on my phone. I think you can tell. Let me make sure. So me, right? Anyway, welcome to Convict Inc. I'm Robert Rosso, your host. If you guys don't see this live, you guys will end up seeing this. I'm sweating. I like how to do a bunch of maneuvering right now. You guys will see this in a video format or not. I just hit 13,300 subs tonight. And I'm grateful, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. Let me see if anybody else has found it yet. A couple guys are finding their way back. All right, I appreciate you guys being here. Yes, I screwed up. So when you go live straight from YouTube, if you do it on a phone, which is what I've done, you have to change the settings, and I just found out. So I can see some comments. I just want you guys to know that the reading glasses that I have on, I'll probably go back and try to read them later. They're like 1.25s and I need 2.25. Anyway, this was kind of last minute again. I said just the other night that I was going to do, like 2 quality videos and maybe a live a week or 3 quality videos. There's a little issue there between me and anyway. So we'll get that figured out. But tonight I had the time to do it. Usually on Tuesday nights, there would be a meeting that I would like to go to in Muldrow, Oklahoma, but I did not get permission from my PO. I forgot to ask, and I didn't want to bother him after 5:30 when he's off, or 5 o'clock. So I did go this morning at 6 a.m., so I got that covered. So anyway, all right, so what I was going to do earlier, I was going to actually make a video tonight, maybe even 2 because I had the time, and of course my mind bounces, maybe ADHD or ADD or something, who the hell knows. So I had notes prepared and everything else, and then I was off bouncing somewhere else, and then I wanted to do a live. So I like doing lives better. I love doing lives way better than videos now for whatever reason. And that's what I decided to do because I have at least an hour to kill for now. So anyway, some time ago I saw a prison channel, very probably the biggest one out there, do a piece on what lifers do in prison all day, or something to that, something of that nature. And I did a video about lifers in prison, whatever I did. I can't remember how I exactly titled it now. But it made me stop and think about, because I had life without parole, because I know many lifers in prison, I stopped and I was really thinking about the mindset of lifers and what people in prison that have life without the possibility of release specifically, how they cope, Not everybody's the same. I know it probably would seem that way. But different people do different things. Obviously, it's not like rocket science. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to talk about how I dealt with it. A lot of you know, this is going to be maybe some repetitive things that I've learned recently about myself that made me take a second look at that. I'm seeing a real dark screen right now. I hope it's not that dark when it comes out on video. As a matter of fact, I can probably look and see, but I don't have the remote near me. Anyway, I've been reading a lot lately. Been reading some psychology books actually, and I read a book by Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning, and he was a former Holocaust survivor who wrote about times in the concentration camps. He was a psychiatrist maybe, and his book, reading it was like a platform for prison stories for me. It like gave me that spark about prison stories, and I've been reading that book and rereading that book and rereading that book over and over again. And you guys will probably, I'm putting that straight out there, you guys will probably, if you've ever read the book, it's by Victor, I don't know, Viktor, Viktor E. Frankl, talks about the different stages that you go through when you begin incarceration, etc. Okay, so let me get back to my point. So when I went to federal prison, so let me back up for those of you that don't know, because there are some new subs. In 1997, I was arrested for a drug charge. Ended up being conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. Sometime later, sat in jail for 6 months before the feds actually indicted me. I had state charges pending. And at some point, I knew that I was facing a mandatory minimum sentence of life without the possibility of release under the old federal 3 Strikes Act, basically, that the equivalent of a 3rd strike. It's actually called an 851 enhancement, mandatory minimum, blah, blah, blah. It's not important. Said many times, in the end, they came down to offer me 2 years. I refused because it was a cooperation deal. And then it was off to the races. It was trial. I mean, I couldn't have pled guilty at that point, especially in me with my mouth. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I might have given me life without parole too, the way I talked to some of those investigators. So anyway, no, but all jokes aside, I do not think anybody deserves mandatory minimum sentences, mandatory minimum life sentences for narcotics. And I know many of you might disagree in the current climate with fentanyl, but that includes with fentanyl. But anyway, that's just a personal opinion there. We're all entitled to our own. I'm going to say this, and I've repeated this too. When I was sentenced to life, I was high. I've been up for a few days doing various drugs, including uppers, downers, and all-arounders. Smoked a joint before I went and got sentenced. The Honorable Judge Jim Larry Hendren sentenced me to life. I hate to reuse the word surreal. I was numb. I knew what I was facing. I knew what I was going to get. And I'll say this. From the beginning, I never, ever believed I was going to spend the rest of my life in prison. And the reason is because I had a non-violent drug charge. And I know people have issues when it comes to the word non-violent and drugs together, especially once again, in the climate of fentanyl, because I even grapple with this whole fentanyl crisis. And I was going to do a video about meth and fentanyl again, and just get into it because I'm really passionate about it right now. I'm watching zombies everywhere around me. I am currently back and forth between a city and town, whatever, and I see zombies up in the city, and it's sad. It's sad. But anyway, I'm getting way off track again. Okay, so like I said, I did not believe, I couldn't allow myself to believe that I was going to spend the rest of my life in prison. And always had hope. There were times that I doubted it, and there were times that I felt like I was never going to get out. But when I really look back at those times, it was times when I was coming off drugs, on drugs, specifically heroin, opiates, fentanyl, and I got the blues, the woe is me, whatever you want to say. And there was a time when Obama didn't let everybody out. Many lifers thought that Obama was going to come in and save the day. So there was like over 3,000 people with nonviolent drug offenses doing life at the time. I think it was more than that. I don't know the numbers today. And I can tell you that everybody who had life without the possibility of release for drug offenses, especially under the 3rd Strike Act, truly believed that Barack Obama was going to come in and save the day. To this day, I think he wasted an opportunity. He had an opportunity to do what I call a blanket commutation. There was different legal scholars that said that might not be legal. He He could have did it. He could have got away with it, especially Obama. He could have did it, for sure. So when that happened, definitely I lost hope. Now let me get back. So I entered Leavenworth in 1998, September, and 15 minutes into it, I got high. My coping mechanism with my life sentence was, well, my coping mechanism with my life sentence and the fear I had of being in Leavenworth, having life, fear that I lost, or that I, at least for the time being, family, friends, children, I drowned it out with heroin, with alcohol. Heroin and alcohol primarily. There was cocaine involved, there was meth involved. Meth in prison, by the way, side note, sucks. It's all fun and games until you come down and then you feel fucking horrible. Worst drug for prison, by the way. Worst drug, meth. It's all great when you come down and it's like you feel locked up. Heroin, on the other hand, sadly, I cannot say the same. It was an escape. But that's how I coped with it. That's how I personally cope. Now, I knew many other lifers that poured themselves into the law, got busy, and just like it was all about law books. It was all about trying to find their way out. Who wouldn't? Who with a life sentence, especially for nonviolent drug lifers, who wouldn't go to prison and try to find every means necessary, every which way to get out of prison? The guys who did well, and I can say including myself, even though I was numb, I numbed the pain, were the guys who always kept that hope alive. You have to have hope, and that goes in all aspects of life. If you don't have hope, what do you really have? I will say that a lot of lifers live in the rear view mirror. There's a saying in rehab that there's a reason the windshield is big in front of you and large. It's because you're looking forward and moving ahead, and the rear view mirror is small. You're looking back, and that's the way it should be. Don't forget your past, but don't live in your past. A lot of lifers live in the past, including myself. Relationships, women who did us bad, forget what we did to them. Children growing up without a father or calling somebody else dad. A lot of us dwelled on it for sure. A lot of us didn't show our emotions, might have took it out in different ways. I know, I can think of one guy specifically, and he's written books, and Malik, I forgot, but he was from DC. He was not doing life without for a nonviolent drug offense, but for, I think it was murder of police officers. I forgot what it was. The way he coped with it, he wrote books. He started writing a couple legal books, and but I remember looking at this guy, and I knew that all of his hope was lost. His whole existence was getting a manuscript done, getting it published, and he actually was selling the books within the prison. I'm not sure if he ever got outside publishers. And this goes all the way back into Lewisburg between the years of 2002 and 2007. I know other lifers, and I'm trying to think of a good example because he didn't have life. They get themselves in a position of power in prison. That is a job, such as a captain's clerk, which many of you might know in prison who have done time. It's a suspect job. If the captain trusts you, you might not want to trust that person because you think they're hot. Or if you know that they are and they're the captain's baby, captain's boy, whatever, many other people would use that to their advantage, spread false information, knowing it would get back to the captain. But those people, guys like that who get close with staff as they get life sentences, really do get some form of Stockholm syndrome. They really do start looking at other inmates, prisoners, convicts, as less than, as the others. They identify with staff. They kind of they forget where they really are. And, you know, I've been in a position where I've had privilege from staff because they've known me for a long time, and that comes with being in a prison for a long time. There are certain government officials that believe that people shouldn't stay in prisons for such a long period of time for that very reason. Staff might get too close from them, which can make them get too comfortable. They can bring them contraband, etc. But that, you know what, when you that's on the staff. That's not on the inmate. So in general, lifers that I've known have dealt with their problem through reliving their past and telling stories all day, every day about the good old days, forgetting if they played the tape out, the bad times. So there's some psychological issues there for sure. Everybody that's been in the joint knows the lifer that's stuck way back. I recall myself even telling stories from the past to people that were younger, and making it sound like it was yesterday and it was 20-something years ago, and I didn't even realize it. I'm telling stories when there's still bag phones, Altel flip phones, not even knowing what was on the outside. Other lifers cope with it in the hobbycraft, painting. There was a very famous member of Mexican Mafia, Black Hand, Lamy, whatever you want to say, and I know everybody hates when I say that because I say it bad, and I'm from California, I should be able to say that perfect. Willie Bobo. Willie Bobo, I heard he did get out, by the way, and I heard he went back in. I don't know the exact truth about that. I haven't looked it up. Willie Bobo's existence as a lifer, but he did have parolable sentence under the old law. It was painting. And I believe that people that in the mob genre that know Tommy Karate, his existence pretty much consists of painting. So you're limited in there for sure. I know that when I started writing for publication, websites or whatever, I mean, that was everything. So I was more mentally free in there doing that, arguably, than the times I've had out here, the struggles I've had out here. Not all the time. I'm not, so I don't want to get off track there. But that was freeing to me. So I did do the jailhouse lawyer thing. I did get into the law books. I won't say that my heart was into it like some of my friends. Shout out Chad Marks, shout out Rusty Marks, shout out Eddie Cox. But I liked winning it. And administrative remedies was my thing when it came to any kind of legal work. And those are grievance forms, appeals, and stuff like that. Of course, when you're in prison and you've been put there by the government, it's really satisfying beating them. And it doesn't matter if the person's innocent or guilty. That's the truth. So a lot of focus was in that. Going back to or staying on with me, I was probably, and I had to be reminded of this recently by people that I did time with, about keeping that spark of hope alive. And it's true. I didn't give up. There were moments when I did. There were moments when I succumbed to drugs and alcohol and went into the blues, the sadness, which I've recently realized sadness is my comfort zone, which sounds crazy, but it's true. And there were moments, but in general, I had a lot to be hopeful for. Going back to being a published author in prison, Seth Ferranti, who run Guerrilla Convict and now is doing big things with Netflix. He didn't have life, but he understands what it's like when you think you're cemented away, when you're put away with the sentence. He had more than 20 years, and then you are able to get a voice out in the community. It's a big deal. You feel like you have a sense of purpose. And I think that's really an important keynote I should hit on you. Lifers really look for a sense of purpose within themselves, meaning the guys that are just shut out, the guys that have murder, that don't believe they're getting out, that lost hope. Because, by the way, I know a lot of guys that had life that are murderers that do believe they're still going to get out one day. And every once in a while, some of them do. But it's all about finding that sense of purpose in the joint. And that could be as much as holding down a washer machine in hobbycraft. Chicky. Chicky from Philly. Or being the captain's orderly. You think you've got some kind of entitlement issues and everybody else is less than. It's a trip. I know a lot of people, once guys or girls get convicted and are sentenced to life, they just kind of like, fuck, they're scumbags, they should be in there anyway. They're humans, they're people. Bad people make bad choices, but they're not always bad. I mean, there are some, you'll run across some that you're just like, even me, it's like, you know, I mean, I'm glad this guy's in here. I'm glad he's not out in the community. But that's so far in between, and people base that off and even I can do that, basing it off watching 20/20 Dateline, 48 Hours. You know, the way that's all produced is villainizing the people, and I'm not saying that those people aren't bad. I'm not saying that a mother that drowns her kid or kills her, that's horrible. That's horrible. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that. But I believe a lot of cases, those were moments, whether they were wrong or right, and people should absolutely pay for their crime. But anyway, yeah, getting back on track. So yeah, it's really about finding a sense of purpose. I was fortunate, I say that over and over again in my life. So my mind was first, it was just polluted with drugs and alcohol, party like a rock star, rock on. All the parties except for the women, right? But what I was doing is just drowning out my feelings. So I didn't want to feel it. That's what I was not allowing myself to do. Then once I got sober in 2007 and did feel it, I immediately wouldn't allow myself to feel pain. I figured out how to write, and then I just, you know, I thrived. I did arguably become addicted to writing. That was my addiction just changes. My addictions just go from one extreme to the other. Today I am chewing tobacco, like a red. Anyway, yeah, just temporarily. But yeah, I'm trying to. I was thinking of somebody a second ago and I lost it. I was trying to read a comment because I almost started seeing them, but I don't have my glasses and the screen is dark. But so what do lifers do all day? I'm going to get back, and there was a video that was done about that, and I've made a couple comments. You're in prison, you know, you're in a structured environment, you wake up, you go to breakfast or you don't. A lot of times when you've been there a while, you stop going and you buy commissary food, you eat oatmeal in the morning, you go outside and you work out, or you walk. In my case, I walked in the mornings. And then anytime, so in my lowest times, it was always about trying to find that spark in my head that I can cling on to build up my hope again. And I will go back again to when Obama did his last round of commutation. He let about 2,000 people out there about. And so this is shaking a little bit. About 2,000 people. And the final blow to us lifers was letting out Chelsea Manning, who went in Bradley Manning and came out Chelsea. I hope she's doing well. But that was like the final blow to us. I remember Oscar Lopez. What was his? He was a Puerto Rican liberation. I forgot the name. I'm just drawing a blank on that. It was good to see Oscar get out because I knew him. We were not close. We walked in the mornings. We said we did. I didn't talk to him that much. I did not, but I knew him and he knew me. But it was good to see him out. At the same time, as somebody with a nonviolent drug offense, you were a little pissed because you're thinking, man, this guy. There's people that died. It was an anti-government dude. He took on the United States government with his thumbs up, with his middle fingers in there the entire time. and probably still is today. But then you look back and you say, when it comes to Oscar, I'm talking, Oscar had a chance to get out many years ago with the rest of his co-defendants. Clinton let a lot of them out, and all he had to do was, I think, renounce the organization or something, and Oscar said no. So he's a guy of principle, whether you love him, hate him, can't stand him. He was a man of principle. Whether his principles are right or wrong is for him to decide, or for others to decide, not me. I was glad to see him go, but then again, I remember the conversation with other lifers, and I'm thinking right now of Jimbo Martin, who I worked on his his compassionate release, which I got out on compassionate release, and so did at least 6 other lifers, my friends of mine that had life. And Jimbo's compassionate release sat in court for 2+ years. A magistrate recommended he get out, and the judge came and flipped the magistrate's decision, and he's still in there today. The conversations we had after we didn't get out, I will tell you that I was probably really suicidal at the time of my mind, and I'm going to go a little step further. At that time of my life, I do believe there was heroin in that prison 2 days before, and I went on a search for some, and I didn't do it to get high. Had there been some, maybe I might not be here today. The conversations, Jimbo and 2 other lifers, and I'm not going to name them right now, these guys are still in the joint. These are just talking, and it was desperate. And at that point, when you had life, and you felt at that time so hopeless, because Obama was our great hope. Okay, I just want to make that clear. You cannot talk to somebody who had life without parole in federal prison who was not all the way hopeful that Obama was going to come and save our day. And it still bothers me that he didn't, not for me, but for everybody else who's still stuck there. I wish Trump would have had the balls to do it, but and that is a blanket commutation for at least to reduce everybody who's doing life without the possibilities to 25 years mandatory minimum. So many would get out. And in fact, under the Trump administration, there is no mandatory minimum life, in case you guys don't know. There's mandatory minimum 25 years. Drug offenders can still get life, but there's other factors that decide that, okay? So, going back to what I was saying, the desperate conversations. I gotta watch. So, the mindset, okay, was we thought about the guys across the street up on death row. And if you know anything about the guys on death row or anything what happens up on death row, I don't know. I have not been in the same building as the death row inmates since 2016. I was in the same building as the death row inmates. I was right below them in the SHU, Special Housing Unit. I was over there on an investigation with my cellmate for having a charger, which was a MP3 charger. They thought it was a cell phone charger, but anyway, it was my cellies. He took the rap. We had to stay over there. We were underneath the lifers. We got to talk to, the guys on death row. We got to speak to them, and they were thriving on death row. Now, when I say that, I don't know. I'm not inside their cell. They were single cell. They got ice cream. They had refrigerators. The guards brought them ice cream when they on call. Now, I'm not trying to advocate for changing life for dead guys on death row's conditions. That is not it. So don't get me wrong. My real opinion on that is they're in a box. Who gives a fuck if they have Nintendos? But people would say they don't deserve Nintendos. They don't deserve to watch a movie. They deserve to sit in the box and just be miserable and suffer. They're humans. No, they don't. And who gives a fuck what they got? That's just my opinion. But now, being a guy that was in prison with life without parole and thinking about being in a single cell where you had email access, many organizations that sent you endless amounts of money for commissary, where you can get high. Don't know if they can anymore. Not trying to bust them out, not trying to change anything, but they had opportunities using the pipelines that creative convicts make through pipe chases and through toilets. They got plenty of drugs if they want it. Not everybody up there wants to get high. I can imagine. But man, anyway, so lifer talk. Back in the lifer talk. Desperate, pissed off. Couldn't believe that Obama in the final hours focused on Chelsea Manning, who didn't do that much time off the sentence, and we can go all about Manning and what he did, and we can do all that, or she did. But it was a straight blow to us. Okay, that's how we felt at the time. Hope Manning's doing well, by the way. No problem. Out. Hope everybody gets out at some point after they do a reasonable amount of time in prison, or in cases of people that hurt children in a bad way. I'm not going to say that. So let's go back. Desperation. Okay, so yeah, there was some of us lifers that were thinking how great it would be up on death row. You get tired of being around people, and you especially don't want to be around a group of people with a short amount of time. Right after you just get hit and find out you're not getting out of prison, at least for today, or at least for a period of time. You don't want to hear people talk about getting out at that point. And I've never been one of those guys that were like totally envious of guys getting out. I mean, sure, it hurts sometimes. And sure, you think that fucking scumbag doesn't deserve it. Sure, there was times, those are moments. But in the big picture, no, I didn't. It was hard a bit at times, especially, you'd start thinking about what life would be like for you or for me. But I was always hopeful, and I was a hopeful person. I kept hope alive, and great things happened in my life, including the person I met, you guys know, but ultimately married, and just the opportunities that I had. The writing gigs, was being in contact with bigwig media consultants. Yeah, it was definitely served my ego, and it felt really good because I felt like if I wanted to speak and get a message out, I can do it. And yeah, so there was that. Now, there's a point I just missed. I really need to start keeping notes, and I need to start doing this for myself. I just thought, oh damn, it wasn't about Jimbo. It was about another mindset of life. I'm sorry, I just drew a blank. Anyway, so hope is the key to it, and that's what I was going at. What happens in prison? What happened over the last 20 plus years, 30 years in the feds is lifers, guys who had life. And I'm talking about on RICO cases. I'm talking about on drug conspiracies. Money laundering cases. I mean, people don't realize the different crimes people are in life for. But guys that had life are always waiting on laws to change. And it sucks because there's been so many opportunities going all the way back to Maxine Waters, old Auntie Max. Telling lifers in 1999, was it, to strike, to lay down, stop working federal prison industries, and our sentences would change. She got everybody riled up. We all believed, every year we believed that the laws were going to change. And that can suck when it doesn't. How many times did I tell my wife, my mom, my dad, my fiance wife, how many times did this is going to be the year, next being the year? You know what happens as people stop believing it. I never did. Maybe foolishly at times, but I guess it worked. But it's hard on families too. But I need to express and tell everybody, really explain on how mentally taxing that is and was, that still is for guys sitting in the joint. I can imagine, and I have not talked to friends that have life sentences in a minute. I've been too ashamed to be honest. I stopped answering the phone, to be honest. A lot of them stopped calling me, to be honest, because of my situations on the outside fucking up. How it would be right now if I was still, or how do my friends feel with the current political climate? It's got to be hell. it's got to be hell to see Joe Biden in office right now, a Democrat, because so many people in prison believe that the Democrats are saviors, and this is not a political statement. This is not about Democrats, Republicans. But it was, I mean, going back, you know, I remember when Bush got in, oh my God, Bush got in, we're never going to get out of prison. Bush passed a couple of pretty decent laws. And when it comes to, what was it, the Second Chance Act, I think it was, that was about home confinement and getting out, more halfway house time. So Bush did do something. Obama, there was some guideline changes. Was it the guidelines? I'm messing it up right now. But it's year after year, decade after decade, to sit here and have these drug laws the way that they are, and have all these guys that are just getting old, that families have been torn apart because of their actions, but it should not go on in perpetuity, I guess, because generation after generation does miss that person. I mean, people are going to blow back. I mean, give me hell on that one, because they're going to say they need to take responsibility. It's their own fault. Blah blah blah. I get it. But the laws that exist and that have had so many opportunities to change and today still exist, even though there was a change in the Trump administration, suck. It's fucking bullshit that Congress can't get that together. And what's going to happen now, I fear, is they say the pendulum swings every 30 to 40 years. I think that's what it was. You got reform, all the way to where we get golf courses in federal prison. And 2020 comes on and does club-fed programs, and then all of a sudden everybody gets pissed off, and then it's just punishment. And then the pendulum has now started to swing, and then we now have fentanyl. And I fear this is going to just fuck everything up. And I hope to God that in that case, that we can all look back on what happened in the crack laws. And the crack laws were nothing but a big waste. Nothing changed. We can argue that crack got stopped or it got diminished. The drug type just changed. The drug changed. Our drug problem is 50 times worse in this country than it was under the crack laws. And I'm not trying to get into the differences between crack and meth right now. But people out there who's now what's happened is more people are losing. Now almost everyone knows somebody who's died because of fentanyl, or knows somebody whose family members have died or friends. You can't even get, like, what is it, 6 degrees? It's like 2 degrees and you know somebody, or you know somebody, or it's somebody in your community. It's a wrap. Everybody knows. I mean, so I hope people in Congress on that note, and I hope politicians, and I hope judges with reason. What do I want to say? Judges will stop and pause and really think about that as they try to turn up the heat on these sentences. I hope lawmakers really look at that and say, oh yeah, there's a political appetite right now for this fentanyl stuff. And it's great to say, we're going to go in and we're going to crack down and we're going to start killing fentanyl. It's easy to say, and then you got a bunch of dumbasses on the street that are like, yay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so Joey got something from Paco who killed my kid. Let's fry him up. Yeah. I mean, it's sick. And I'm going off on the wrong side now. I know it. I know I am. But I can bring it back into saying these poor bastards that have been in prison 30 years now or more, that are old men, that are costing the taxpayers just shitloads of money. I hope that they can find ways to hold on to hope, cope. Because I'm sure it's getting harder, and I'm sure there's guys in there now. I can imagine, because I've seen it. I've watched guys who had so much hope on so many different changes in laws. And let me say this: there's so many laws that would just wet your feet, just get right there, and it's like guys with life sentences would file, but they wouldn't get the intervening change in the law or the changes in the law. And it's like all these crazy excuses come up. It's like, yeah, we're going to get out. There's a 2-point reduction on drug. People don't understand that. I'm not going to get into it. But there's this 2-point reduction, which is going to reduce my sentence. And then they'll file the courts, and the court's like, sorry, it's not retroactive. You know, and you're like, what the fuck? What do you mean it's not retroactive? And it's just so disheartening. It sucks so bad when you've got a life sentence and that happens. I mean, countless times. With me, it was like 2 or 3 times. By the way, so I'll do a little side note. You know what the worst thing in my case was? And I need to do a whole video about this. I've got to. I have to. Damn it, that's what I got to do. I wish I had a pen in front of me. In my case, in 2005, there was like really 6 government witnesses against me that mattered. There was M, there was B, there was my second person that I married that we were on a drug binge and never was weird. There was a babysitter, it sounds creepy, but it wasn't, or a nanny / whatever she was. There was a guy I'd never seen in my life, and a guy named G Money. And anyway, basically there was like 6, 7 that mattered. Half of them recanted. 2 of them said that they lied. 1 of them sat down and talked with a lawyer of mine did a deposition with how the assistant U.S. attorney, who was the head of my prosecution, sat down with him and coached him on what to say. He did not know me. He met me in a driveway, and I said, hey, you want to hit this joint? And this guy says, oh yeah, I know, Robert. Came to my house and he whipped out pounds of methamphetamine. It was nuts. It was nuts. Coached by the U.S. attorney. Deposition. This guy had no motive to come help me. He had a change of heart. He had a guilty conscience, and somebody else came forward, went to him, and this guy sat down and spilled the beans. And then a friend of mine, who was a good friend, who I hated for years, who I now call a friend again, who testified against me, Martin, came forward and said what he had to do, and he told the truth. Another person came forward, and she could have went a little further, I will say, but she went pretty far in saying her truth, what happened. Again, coached. This wasn't by the U.S. attorney. It was coached by the U.S. Postal Service. Although I liked that inspector, MJ Webb. Shout out to you if you're still alive and around. He was actually a pretty decent dude. And that piece of shit Michael Bates. I'm sorry I had to put that out there. But these guys coach these people. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Michael Bates, I'm sure I can find good things in you too. Even though you planted evidence on murder cases I know about and everything else. But hey, it's a good size to everybody. So, I shouldn't have went there. So anyway, I filed. I had what's called prosecutorial misconduct and newly discovered evidence. I could not find an attorney in the area, not in the area, that would touch that case. I had to go all the way down to Little Rock. And wouldn't you know, I got somebody who was strung out on cocaine. Nice guy. Married his paralegal assistant. And called him one day, and she had him locked out of the house. He was banging on the door, and I called her, and she's like, I don't know, he's out of his mind. He's been up for 3 days. I'm like, this is my lawyer. My lawyer. You know what I'm, oh, Jesus Christ. Craig L., I hope you've gotten help since then. But anyway, did a good job? No, I mean, I did the job. He just typed what I put out. I did a good job on the brief, and he did a good job at taking my parents' money and snorting it up his nose, and I still had a great shot in the 8th Circuit, and they had did they have oral arguments? No. It usually takes 30 days to deny that, and they held me up for a year. One of my former attorneys, who's a big wig up in the 8th Circuit, said that they came close to giving it to me. It's hard to prove prosecutorial misconduct. The way that they did my case, and I know I went way off of what my topic was. The way they did my case was they said, even if this happened, even if these government witnesses are now telling the truth, and they said, let's assume they are. This is in a nutshell. Okay, so there's a lot more than that. Let's assume that they're telling the truth. Okay, we'll say they're telling the truth. There's still these other 3 witnesses over here that haven't recanted. And based on those 3 witnesses, you, Mr. Rosso, can still have a life sentence. A jury still could have found me guilty. This prosecutorial misconduct, let's just sweep this under the rug. We don't want to talk about that, because this is a good U.S. attorney who's been promoted, by the way, and he's in D.C. working now. We don't want to mess with his job. Sucked. I mean, whatever. That's just how it works. But still, even after, you know what? And I'm going to say this too. I need to add this. Had they let me out at that time, I'd have been right back in shortly, for sure. It wasn't until about the 10-year mark that the thought of drug dealing at that time just seems like the stupidest thing in the world to me. But I was about 7 years in, angry, especially since now I knew that the U.S. attorney coached people. Oh, by the way, and this is what I've recently found out, since 3 months ago, 2 months ago, and I missed it, and he talked about it, so I don't care. So the guy's name was Byron Reagan. This is government witness number 2. Byron, if you ever see this, thank you for helping me out. Byron Reagan, government witness number 2, and he became a huge informant. So a lot of people know it's not. I do believe that they're living in the mountains somewhere, and he's doing well. This is what I heard. So while he was testifying against me, now listen to this, and I'm going to really dig in this. He said this in the deposition. The night before he testified against me, got busted making methamphetamine in a hotel room. And they did not disclose that to my jury. Bates, Michael Bates, you busted him. I know this for a fact now. This happened, and he did say this, but I didn't understand what he was saying. It's in my deposition. I'm going to put this. I'm going to do a whole thing on this one day, like from start to finish, so I'm not so all over the place. But busted him in a hotel room manufacturing methamphetamine. Went and made him look like a saint. He was a sign shop owner who I was trying to go to him with my friend Martin, and I went to his sign shop. He said, never met him. No. Do you want to hit a joint, dude? And he said that I tried to push my methamphetamine on him. And it wasn't, first he goes, how much this is the prosecutor in my case, guys. How much methamphetamine did Mr. Rosso have on him when you met him in the driveway, such and such? He had this much. Are you sure? This is in my trial transcripts. It could have been this much. And then prosecutor, assistant U.S. attorney, could it have been this much? Oh yeah, it was this much. I swear to God, it was like the dumbest thing in the world. It was crazy. But hey, again, I must add, let me play the tape out. This is recovery work I'm doing. If I play the tape out, right back into prison with a brand new life sentence for drugs, for sure. For sure, 100%. Not even a question of doubt. So I have to look at it that way too. So I can get a little agitated, whatever, and a little wound up about it, but that's the truth, and I have to just stay grounded in those facts, because that's what would have happened. Oh my God, especially at that time. Oh yeah, for sure. Anyway, back to LIFER'S. So let's go look back in Leavenworth. Let me think of some of the guys that people from New York would know, and that's Bobby Manna. Bobby Manna would do his time on the outside. He was on the inside, but his whole focus was on the outside. People don't know Bobby Manna. He was underboss for, I screw this up every time, Lucchese or Genovese. I know when they get, you don't even know. Bob. Sorry. And yes, I knew Bobby. Not as well as some of the others, but yes. And I don't know why I always get screwed up with Bobby and Genovese or Lucchese. I don't know why. But he lived on the phone. So his whole, like everything was, of course, like a lot of the Italian guys, who's gonna make the meal? They eat good, especially at Leavenworth back in the day. But his whole existence was between, I want to say, 9 and 11 phone calls. And back then we didn't have 15-minute times. It was just, you could make one. And Bobby was courteous. Everybody knew that was like Bobby's time on a certain phone. And that's what he did. He did his time that way. So I don't know if he was still doing stuff on the street with mafia or whatever, but whatever it was, I'm sure the way, because of the position he was once a pound of time in, that was his way of controlling his time, was to control whatever was going on the street, whether it be his family, crime, family, whatever, I don't know. But he was a good guy, for sure. I need to say that. But that's how Bobby did his. John Stanfa, another mob boss. How did John did his time, focused on his prison job, which was in the commissary, and he had a position of power for sure. Happy-go-lucky guy, and playing bocce ball, and making food, sugu. So for sure. And Stanfa never, as far as I know, as far as I can remember, wasn't one of those guys that thought he was ever going to get out. I mean, he would fight the case and have guys fight his case, but I remember talking to John early on, and he said he was never going to get out. And that was really on when I first got to Leavenworth. But he was focused on, he had a warehouse job. It was the warehouse, and I know that Johnny Bart, if you read, you'll remember, it was commissary, but I think he had the warehouse job too, which is a hell of a position in the joint. But that's, guys find a way to survive. I mean, and to get through their days. Of course you have to, or you just kill yourself. I mean, one or the other. What are you going to do? And believe it or not, I know of so many people, and I've been one of them. If I ever got on life, I'd hang it up, blah, blah, blah. As long as you can find ways to keep hope alive and have, even if it's some kind of false hope, I would argue, you'll keep pushing forward. And unless you're like a straight psychopath and you just want to go in there and kill people and go to death row, whatever, like the talk amongst a crowd of lifers afterwards, were just like there was conversations amongst lifers that didn't get out because of Obama that were ready just to go murder people in prison. There for sure was. That's not a joke. I mean, how serious the conversations? I would argue that a couple were. And I mean that. And it was like, if you go on death row, if we just go whack somebody, whether it be a guard or some scumbag, or we'll pick out somebody, we'll get the conversation. I say we, but it wasn't me. It was the conversation. Like, we'll get somebody who was like a sex offender or a rat, the known rat, and just fucking, If you have life in prison, by the way, they're pretty much going to give you the death penalty if you kill somebody in prison. So, and people are very aware of that. So in desperate hours, you have desperate conversations, okay? That's all. So I wouldn't make too much of that, so please don't do that. And that should only be natural, right? And how many people that are watching this right now can honestly say that, they would want to live if they knew that if they were ever sentenced to life without the possibility of release. I bet many of you would say, I would never want to do that. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what your mind can do, what a little hope can do. And I'm sure a lot of hope's being lost with a lot of these laws, I'm sure. But at the same time, the guys with strong minds or strong sense of will, whatever, hope, Biden's in office. So for whatever reason, the majority of prisoners are still thinking Democrats are going to let everybody out. And I hope Uncle Joe, our president, I hope somebody can sign the paper for him. I don't know if he can anymore. I mean, I gotta make a joke because poor Joe, with the Israel thing, he can come up with one word to Iran. Don't! It's like, that's it? Don't. Anyway, I thought that was a little humorous. Joe Biden, I hope he does what we all wanted Obama to do. I hope he signs a blanket commutation, at least reducing all lifers to 25. And I'm going to say this. I know lifers who've gotten out and done really well straight from the street. They have, what's the score system, the sheet system that they did. Under the First Step Act, they came out with the system, and it's for mental health. It's to evaluate. Oh, man. Anyway, the lifers like me who have substance abuse disorder, I do wish, although I was fortunate that most people, when I got out, I do now look and wish that I would have had some reentry program. It would have sucked, I'm sure. Like, I would have been like, fuck, I don't need this. But the guys that have been in there, and it's like 30 plus years now. It's going on. There's a bunch of them that are in there for 30 plus years. They have no clue what they're getting out to. Again, if you guys missed my live one night before last now, I just learned how to use the soda machine at Wendy's for the first time. I just was able to ask somebody for help to show me. Otherwise, every time I've been in Wendy's, and I can tell you, I was thinking it's been about 20 times in the last 2 years. Every time I bought iced tea, because iced tea, I'm shaking, I'm sorry. Iced tea is separate from the soda machines, and I knew how to push the cup and push the lever. The soda machine had another lever, which I didn't know was ice. I never even got ice in that. Didn't have ice. And I learned for the first time how to push the buttons and do it. Just today, Sunday. Sunday was the day. So today's Sunday, I learned how to do it. I froze up. I just started eating in the last 2 days different food. I had the birthday cake Kit Kat. Oddly great. It's weird but great. I didn't want to try those before because I always go back to what I knew before I got locked up in '97. Anyway, so I do hope in a perfect world there'd be some kind of reentry process, not just for substance abuse, but just to acclimate, learn how to use some kind of basic computer skills instead of having your 6-year-old granddaughter or somebody you're married to help or whatever. You know, just to get the it's different. It's different out here, you know. But everybody's different. But man, so whatever. Kind of got off track. I don't even know how long I've been on right now. So whatever. Have I been on over an hour? 51 minutes. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off. I just wanted to come on to run my mouth a little bit and talk a little bit because I like to hear myself talk. Just kidding. I appreciate, by the way, again, 13,300 subs. To me, that's awesome. Yes, I know if I didn't take the wrong path on my channel, blah, 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 but I can't go back and change the past. All I can do is do now, live in the present, and do better in the future. I came up with like 3 different ideas for videos. There'll be a lot of prison content, a lot of rehabilitation recovery content. I'm going to have a conversation probably about, maybe a live about fentanyl, and I'd like people to join in. And I would like opinions. And I don't care if your opinions like kill them all. And I'm going to be talking about the meth plague and the zombies that run around here. That is just sad, but I'll get into that as I figure out a few more things with myself. And anyway. Thank you guys for joining me. That's it. Have a good night, and I will see you soon. By the way, I will have the laptop fixed shortly, and then I'll be able to answer comments, okay? What do you say? Hold on, what do you say? Let me see if I can get some of these glasses. Oh, I can't. It's too dark, and my glasses are weak. I can't, sorry. Take care. Good night. How do I turn it off? I have no idea. Shit. Alright. Too rambly? Oh shit. Oh shit. Pin to live stream. Am I still live? I might be. Yeah, I am. I don't know what I'm doing, guys. Okay, here we go. Are you sure you want to stop streaming? Yes. And